So basically, at its core, the kidney is a filter. It's your body's natural filter. Every minute, around 1.2 liters of blood flows through the kidney. Now, that's a significant amount of blood. That's nearly 25% of your entire cardiac output. Now, the cardiac output, if you didn't know, is the total amount of blood or the volume of blood that is pumped by the heart in 1 minute. So that's around 5 to 6 liters. So nearly 25% of that, which is 1.2 liters, under normal circumstances in a healthy person, 1.2 liters of blood flows through the kidneys. Now that is very significant because the kidney's job is critical, and that's why it needs this amount of blood. It maintains the internal environment by filtering the blood, so that removes wastes and balances electrolytes and also regulates fluid volume. All of these high level processes are crucial for survival, and that's why renal failure can be fatal in a very short time. Now we're going to talk about the functions of the kidney. So we said before that it basically maintains homeostasis, and the way it does that is through several processes, which we'll talk about, but the end results are these functions. So the main waste products that we remove, that the kidney removes, are urea, creatinine, and several toxins. So it filters the blood to remove waste products. The second thing is it regulates blood fluid volume. So it also maintains the fluid volume of blood is basically the plasma. So the plasma volume is dependent on the water content, and the kidneys can regulate the amount of water in the blood so that it's around a healthy range. And the next thing, which is also kind of related to the fluid volume, is the electrolyte balance. So electrolytes like sodium, potassium, chloride, calcium, and others need to be at certain levels because, for example, sodium affects water because water osmolarity is basically kind of related to the concentration of solutes. So it also ties in with the fluid volume, but the other things like, for example, potassium, if this is too high, it can cause some really significant issues like hyperkalemia, which means too much potassium, which can cause all kinds of things with heart diseases and can be fatal. Now the next thing in the homeostasis is also the pH, or acid-base balance. So we need to maintain a relatively constant pH, is around, I think, around 7.4. This is the optimum pH for the cells to survive and continue metabolism. So it also needs to maintain the acid-base balance via the hydrogen ion concentration and bicarbonate. So these two factors, hydrogen ions, are obviously what makes things more acidic, and bicarbonates, which are alkaline, they increase the pH. So hydrogen ions decrease the pH. So maintaining the balance between those two will keep the pH relatively stable. Now it also controls blood pressure. Now this is not the main function, but it can do this via something called the RAAS, or the renin-angiotensin-aldosterone system, and we'll talk about that in a separate video. The next thing is it stimulates red blood cell production. So this is not a homeostatic function. This is more of an endocrine function. So it can also act as a gland. EPO, or the erythropoietin, is a hormone that stimulates the red blood cell production by the bone marrow. So in this case, it functions as as an endocrine organ. And the last thing is it activates vitamin D, which is also done. It's not a homeostatic function, but we'll also talk about that later. Now we're going to be talking about the anatomy of the kidneys. This isn't going to be in depth at all. It's just a very simple overview of the anatomy, because in order to understand the processes of the kidney and how it carries out the function, we need to understand the anatomy. So each kidney consists of two main layers, and you might have seen this arrangement in other organs. But basically, it's an outer cortex and an inner medulla. Each kidney receives blood supply from a renal artery and drains into a renal vein. So this artery, the renal artery and renal vein, are the main blood supply that, as we said, carries that 25% or that 1.2 liters every minute to the kidney, to each kidney. And now every kidney has a renal pelvis that collects produced urine and moves it to the associated ureter. So if you didn't know, obviously, like we said, that the kidney is the filter of the blood, and after filtration, the product that we have is urine, and that is carried to the bladder through something called the ureter. This is the tube that carries the urine from the kidney to the bladder, where it's stored, and then it is voided during micturition, basically. Okay, now let's look at this diagram here. So as you can see here, this is a cross section of the kidney. Let me focus that. So this is the outer layer, as we said. This is called the renal cortex, and the inner layer is called the medulla. And you can see there's a clear difference between the two, because first of all, the cortex seems to be like just one whole continuous part, but the medulla is separated into these pyramids. So each of this pyramid basically collects urine. The produced urine is collected from each of these renal pyramids and is carried through this system, which is called the pelvic calyceal system, because each of these little tubes here that collect the urine from the pyramid through basically the apex. So the apex of the pyramid is called the renal papilla, and the urine collects here at the papilla and then moves through these tubes, which are called minor calyces, or the minor calyx. So each pyramid is connected to a minor calyx, and these minor calyces, they conjoin and form major calyces, and each of these major calyces, they combine and they form the renal pelvis, which is this cone-shaped part that continues on to be the ureter, which is just a tube that carries a muscular tube that carries the urine to the bladder. And you can see here let me zoom. Yeah. So you can see here the position of the kidneys. So obviously two kidneys. Now this isn't we're not going to be talking about this, but they are retroperitoneal organs, meaning they are in the they're not covered by peritoneum or the peritoneal cavity. They're not inside it. They're basically attached to the posterior abdominal wall. And you can see here the two kidneys, and this is the renal pelvis, and the renal pelvis continues on to be the ureter, and until we reach here, this is the bladder, and then the urethra, and then micturition happens. Okay, so now that we have an overview of the gross picture of the kidney, let's dive deeper into the renal parenchyma, which is what we're after, basically, because the renal parenchyma, or the kidney parenchyma, is the functional tissue of the kidney. This is the tissue that actually produces the urine, And this tissue spans the cortex and the medulla. So the renal parenchyma is made up of mostly nephrons. Let me highlight this, make it bold. Okay, so nephrons, a nephron is basically the functional and structural unit of the kidney. Each kidney has about 1,000,000 nephrons, and these are the microscopic units responsible for filtering blood and forming urine. As we said, there are the structural and functional units, and we'll see now in this diagram. So this, all of this here, these sets of tubes connected together, this is a nephron. So first of all, it starts off here, which is called the Bowman's capsule, and the you can see these red lines here. These are the arterioles. So there's something called an afferent arteriole. For each nephron, there's an afferent arteriole, and inside the Bowman's capsule, there's something called a glomerulus, which is basically a tuft of capillaries. So the arteriole divides into these tiny capillaries of blood, and this is where the interface between the kidney and the blood happens, inside the glomerulus, inside the Bowman's capsule. And this is where basically the glomerulus acts as a sieve. You know, we're gonna be discussing the histology later in a separate video, but for now, you can think of it as a sieve, where it filters out the blood contents into the Bowman's capsule, and then they move through the proximal convoluted tubule, which is the second part, and then through something called the loop of Henle. So there's a descending limb and an ascending limb. We don't need this detail right now. But then after the loop of Henle, there's the distal convoluted tubule. So proximal convoluted tubule, distal convoluted tubule, and then the last part is the collecting duct. And the collecting duct, you can see here, it takes fluid from multiple nephrons. Okay. Okay, you can see here, this is the Bowman's capsule, and this is the glomerulus. So it's not really visible in this diagram, so I got another picture. So basically, you see this arrow right here. This is the afferent arteriole. It's called afferent because it is coming into the nephron. So, and this arteriole basically divides into this tuft of capillaries, and this is called the glomerulus. And this is where all the filtration happens. This is the most crucial process. So this tuft of capillaries, why do we need a tuft? Why can't it just be an arteriole out, and then an arteriole in, and then an arteriole out? Well, the benefit of having this division is that we have way more surface area by having not just one capillary or two capillaries. By having a lot of capillaries right here, we have a lot of surface area, which is crucial for filtration, because filtration happens through the membranes of these capillaries. And when we have more membranes, we can do more filtration. And that's it. You know, the last part of this video, we're going to be talking about the processes. Now, we kind of have an idea about the structure of a nephron, the kidneys. Let's see how this all ties together. So the way we achieve the functions we talked about before is through multiple processes, and we're going to look at them right now. So first thing, which is the most obvious thing, which is filtration. So we filter the blood. It happens in the glomerulus, as we said, inside the nephron. So the blood is filtered. It removes the wastes, and toxins are removed, and excess water are separated. And then this filtration here isn't very selective, and this is the problem. So basically, we want to only remove the waste products, the things we don't need and we don't want, but we want to keep the other stuff, like glucose, water, to a certain degree, depending on the fluid volume, electrolytes, everything. So a lot of things get filtered out, and we need them back. So the way we get them back into the blood, away from the kidneys, is through reabsorption. So useful substances like glucose, water, sodium are reabsorbed back into the blood, which prevents the loss of essential nutrients, as we said. Now there is an extra process called secretion. So in only the filtration through the glomerulus isn't the only mechanism. This is sort of an active mechanism of secreting instead of just filtering non-selectively. So we select certain ions, certain waste products are actively secreted, like hydrogen and potassium, depending on the homeostatic state. Like, for example, maybe if we have too much potassium, we can secrete some. If we have too much, if the blood is too acidic, we can secrete the hydrogen ions, and so on and so forth. And the last thing is excretion. So after the filtration, reabsorption, and secretion, the end product is urine, and it is collected through the collecting tubules, as we said, the collecting ducts right here, and then it moves from here and into this part here, which is the renal papilla, and moves to the renal pelvis, and then to the ureter and bladder, and then out of the body. There's a character missing here, out of the body, and that's it. So this was a quick overview of the renal function. If you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.